Hi, everyone. In this video, I will review the 3rd of August Character Balance Reorganization Advance Patch. I want to highlight this word, reorganization, and this word was using when you want to change something, and that is similar to the reboot. For example, I want to upgrade my system by changing into a new system, then I need to reorganization my work for a new system. Yeah, what they said on this notice in technically is a reboot, but they may don't know how to use the word correctly, or maybe the Google Translate is error. Yeah, whatever. Let's see what they said in the notice. I will cut these off because they're copy and paste these to every balance patch notice. They said, in the meantime, there have been some opinions that have been given through the balance bulletin board, community, inquiries, etc. Along with the developer's note, directly listen to many opinions of adventurers about the balance in the field. It's time to understand a little more about the parts that were lacking in balance. Let's look into these some opinions that have been given through the balance bulletin board, community, inquiries, etc. And along with the developer's note, directly listen to many opinions of adventurers about the balance in the field. The word that I want you guys to look is some opinions and many opinions. They says some opinions that have been given through the balance bulletin board, community, inquiries, etc. And then say, along with the developer's note, directly listen to many opinions of adventurers about the balance in the field. So, what does this means? It means, the opinion from the balance bulletin board, community, inquiries, and etc. is a minority. But on the other's hand, the opinion that from the player that go to the meeting in developer's note is a majority. And then they say, it's time to understand a little more about the parts that were lacking in balance. Yeah, my first answer for you about what is your lacking is, you're lacking in understand what is right and what is wrong. And you priority the opinion from some player like 5 to 6 players was more important than the 100 or maybe 1,000 of the opinion from webboard, community, and many opinion from the internet. And this is why you will never solve the problem about game balanced and will never make the players satisfy in your balanced work. I don't know who is GM Riel, and I don't know that this GM Riel is the one who really work on the game balance. Or just some bumper dude for someone behind the scenes like Lee Dong-shin and the developer who really work on the game balance. But I believe that this GM Riel is a bumper for Lee Dong-shin because what he write in the message on this notice is exactly like what Lee Dong-shin always does. Well, next. Developer's note, although it is physically difficult to reflect all the opinions you gave in the field right away, although it is a short period of time, we decided that it would be better to reflect the parts that can be reflected as much as possible. In order to change the balance work, we decided to put the existing balance work on hold for a while. Did you see this word again? It is physically difficult to reflect all the opinions you gave in the field right away. Yeah, the same excuse as always, it's difficult this and difficult that. And this excuse that they give to us player is always maybe since Lee Dong-shin took the position of the game director. It's like, the player tell you to nerf the overpower character like Laby, Noah, and Chung's heavy stance is one of them that many player tell you to nerf it on PvP, yeah. The player has tell you about the balancing for years, and tell you every freaking days, and then all of sudden after many years you come out and said, it's difficult to reflect your opinion right away, ha, that is a freaking joke and I actually laugh at you while making this video. So, stop your bullshit excuse and focus on your own improvement instead. If you know that you're failed to do something or knowing that you're lacking in something, you just improve yourself and stop make an excuse, because it will change nothing if you only make an excuse. And I want to highlight these words too. In order to change the balance work, we decided to put the existing balance work on hold for a while. From my understanding, it's have two case. Case 1 is a positive case, and they have already thinking and planning about the game balancing before, and will apply it in the next balance patch. But after getting the pressure from various ways from the player, including the opinion from the player, it's make them think twice that we should hold back our opinion about balancing the game and use the opinion from the player first. Yeah, this is the positive case. And another case is a negative case. They may stop doing balance work for a while to avoid the problem that likely to occur in the future after doing balance patch and to cool down the tension from the player. Yeah. You can telling that they may running away from the problem and hope that the player will forget and go back to play the game peacefully. But in the Q&A meeting and the summer update event, they have talk about extend the cycle of the balance patch, and I'm not sure what it is. In positive case, maybe have more balance patch for every cycle, like having 2 or 3 patch for every 2 months. Or in negative case, extend the time to release the balance patch from every 2 months into every 3 months, but it's likely to be a positive case at this point, because all of the tension and the pressure that the player giving to them is massive. So, yeah, I expect some positive change from now on if the player keep doing their job to make a pressure on them. Alright, next. This balance patch is based on the play data of the Abyss raid. Characters with poor performance in damage, and characters that are judged to be most urgently patched based on the Abyss raid standards. Given opinions by adventurers in the field, and after internally verifying and reviewing the data for the part directly requested for improvement in the field, some have been reflected first. Have you ever seen this word? The definition of insanity is expecting different results while doing the same thing over and over. Yeah, what I want to tell you that you're insane. Every time I read the balance patch note, I always seeing this word. This balance patch is based on the play data of the Abyss raid. Yeah. Always. And you keeps using the same data over and over again and also expecting the different result or hope everything will getting better. The player play Elsword. Not to just to play only in Abyss raid. There was many content that you need to go and watch to it. How about late game dungeon clearing? Maybe you ignore about the late game dungeon clearing, because the only thing that you see is the top player with a overpower equipment that just one skill then clear the room. And that is why you're ignore about the clearing in the late game dungeon and keeps focusing on the Abyss raid only. And how about PvP? Did Elsword didn't have a PvP? It's sure Elsword does have a PvP, and this game was famous is because of the PvP mode, and then you keeps ignore it. And how about Rena? Did you just create this mode and then don't care about it? And how the player will play Elsword with fun? If you focus work only on the Abyss raid, you must change if you wanted the different result or the better result for the game. Don't be an insane person that doing the same thing over and over. It is difficult to reflect many parts through this balance patch, so additional reflection will be applied through a later balance patch. Well, they say that the player's opinion about balance may patch in the next balance patch, and yeah, I'm really getting sick of the word of, it's difficult to reflect. And this word has pop up in the Li Dong Xin message and the balance patch note a lot. As mentioned at the Partner Developers Note event, there will be changes to the balance patch cycle in the future. This is in addition to re-establishing the standard of data that needs reference for balance patches and collecting sufficient data, in addition to simple numerical adjustments. Considering the skill renewal schedule necessary to solve the fundamental problems of the character, we would like to ask for the understanding of adventurers as a necessary change to improve the quality of the balance patch. I hate this word. We would like to ask for the understanding of adventurers. It's like, the player need to be the one who always must be a giver and you is the one who will always be a receiver. And why is the player need to always giving it to you while you have a mindset that I was the one that must get everything and all of you must feed me for good? Yeah. This word have telling me that you're a selfish person. So, yeah, about re-establishing the standard of data, collecting more data, the skill renewal is a good things and I agree with that. Especially the skill renewal for Rose, because the skill that you apply to Elsword is just a copy and paste from the game dungeon and fight her. And this two game have a different playstyle and not fit to the Elsword at all. Yeah, Rose's skill is not properly designed for the Elsword and the skill renewal for this character is a must. Therefore, we would like to briefly guide you on the direction of the next balance patch. 1. We plan to add party synergy for characters in dealer positions that lack party synergy. 2. Renew the skills of characters that are judged to be underperformed in the skill judgment part of the content overall. 3. We are reviewing the implementation so that all characters can reawaken. 1. I somewhat disagree with make more synergy for the dealer position, but did Elsword really have a role in the position? What I see in every character is a dealer. Every freaking character is a dealer to me in this game, and who is really a dealer in this game? So, whatever, I disagree because, if you want to give everyone a synergy skill, the role and the position of the character will become mess up. It's like, the character that has a lot of damage also has a synergy skill like a support character has, so what is the point of the support character? Did we really need the support character in Elsword? Because we're the dealer alone will doing a good job at a synergy like decrease the defense of the enemy or can also giving a buff to the party without a support character. So, what is the point of having a support character when you want a dealer to have a better synergy? I suggest you to be more careful with this. 2. About the renew skills of characters. I completely agree with this, especially for Rose. 3. Make every character can reawaken will ruin the Rage Heart's unique, and you always saying that, we need to keeps the unique of the character. And now you say you want to destroy the unique of some character by make every character can be reawaken. Just make Rage Heart reawakening didn't have a time stop on the second and third awakening. So the unfair about the awakening time stop is solved. Alright. Let's get into the main topic. Reactivation cooldown applied when starting in PvP is good, and you could imagine that you get the skill ignition at the start and then your mana is gone at the early game will be a nightmare in PvP. Increasing the damage for the enemy from this armor break mod is somewhat scary if you using a killing blow trait for this skill and when you fail at the combo in PvP or they pay you back after mana break with awakening time stop and then damage skill. Even if you're a Elboy, you can get one hit kill by this double-edged skill, and the damage from the boss in raid is already scary and I'm not sure that this skill effect to boss in raid or not. And if this skill was effect to the boss in raid, maybe this will be the reason why you not see much Night Emperor in the raid. And yeah, tone it down as makes sense, but for me, I think 10% is more appropriate. And yeah, I agree with this change to the condition that need to have an enemies more than one is not fit to the raid content and 1 vs 1 PvP. And yeah, decreasing it value in PvP is the things that you need always do in the balancing. I agree with buffing this skill, and this will make Rune Master become easier to find the party in raid. Make the buff can still apply when out of the rune area for a 10 seconds will make everything become a lot more convenient for a magic party. And it's fun to look at the player go into the rune area to get the buff and then get out, and when the buff disappear, the player just enter the rune area again. Easing the condition for a rune mastery passive is good, but if the condition is easing, the value should be decreased too. So, decrease the value of the buff to match the difficulty is more makes sense. Well, Rune Master didn't have any passive that increase critical rate, so, yeah, good for you. I think this skill is a bit too much in PvP, so, cut the value down for a PvP to 40% is more makes sense. I think this change is not affect the playstyle much. The concept of this change is the same as Rune Field, and I think it's good. The condition of this back kick is super easy and 20% all defense decrease is too easy, so 5% for each hit and can stack up to 2 stack is more makes sense. This is how you call balance. All of these buff is good except for a Euro kick, and this skill is really hurt in PvP for a 200 mana skill, and I prefer to nerf it instead. Well, many player call for a code Sariel buff, but 100% ignore defense on beam it seem a bit too much. And I think tone it down to have a 50% chance for a beam attack to ignore defense is more makes sense to me. This buff is good for a code Sariel player. I feels like code Sariel will get nerfed because of this change. The buff of this skill seems okay, and the overall of the damage percentage of this skill is decent. Well, the overall buff for a code Sariel is still decent, except for a transcendent passive that look overpower to me, so let's wait and see how it work in the game. This change for a Flamelord is good. Well, let's see what they change for our most unpopular character. I'm curious about the Frostbite debuff, did they affect to the boss? This Frostbite debuff effect and duration will stack up to 3 stack like a water element debuff? And the effect debuff of this Frostbite is the same as a water element debuff? If all this is yes, that is really good, which means you can 100% inflict action speed reduce 40% and defense decrease 30% for a 6 seconds from this freezing grenade, and it will work very good with the debuff from enhanced grenade, which means the synergy from Minerva overall will be 1. Decrease defense 65% 2. Increase damage received to the enemy for a 20% 3. Reduce action speed for a 40% 4. Element resistance minus 100, and that is a lot. It's like you got defense ignore 85% from throwing 3 grenade and that is decent, but still can't compare to decrease 100% defense like in an old patch. But if the Frostbite debuff didn't stack up to 3 stack like a water element debuff and have a debuff duration fixed at 2 seconds, that is flak, screw you. It's like your first grenade is a freezing grenade then throw another grenade for an enhanced grenade debuff, and if the Frostbite debuff duration was really fixed at the 2 seconds, the Frostbite debuff will disappear before you using the main skill damage like Penetrate Bullet and Viper Shower, so that is flak and bruh. And you should increase the duration of the Frostbite since it was not a freezing debuff that freeze and stop the enemy anymore, and increase the Frostbite debuff to at least 5 seconds as makes sense. And as I told you in the rows rework on my previous video about element resistant reduce from the enhanced grenade debuff should be reduced the element resistance to 0. Because it's not easy to hit the enemy with all 3 grenade at once if compared to the other's character's passive that just pressing one skill then you got a 30% attack power or 100% defense ignore. And it's very difficult especially in PvP, so decrease the element resistance to 0 is not wrong. I don't know how they will improve about the Nitor motor flying command, but using 10 mana for each flying command is too much. Well, for Rose overall is still unclear. Let's see when this balance patch release. Ain. I don't know much about Ain, but after I read it, Ain overall damage is improved, but blue and support skill get nerf. And I think KOG try to convince the player to focus on support and damage instead of recovery, but 30% attack power from base Ain passive is a bit too strong in PvP. And reduce it to half or 40% of it value is more makes sense. Now, the heavenly child of KOG, Laby. You said, the character with a poor performance in damage was urgently patched, but this heavenly child of your eternity winner was considered as a 0 tier in the game. And I'll be honest with you for this character, if you didn't want to nerf her, just leave she be and focusing on decreasing the gap between this character and the other's character that was really underperformed the other character and urgently need to be patch or buff like a low rank character. And how is this heavenly child eternity winner is urgently need to be buff? And how is that Kapow Punch has a problem with the action speed? Really? And that ridiculous command activation buff increase to 40% is really necessary or urgently need to be buff? And how many skill that was relate to the command activation passive? Mont Blanc? Increase Mont Blanc's damage for a 40%? Really? Buff the tropical pop action speed seems makes sense, but the situation for this class is really necessary or urgently need to be buff. Did Mont Blanc really has a problem with the action speed? It's just like 1 second to cast this skill and the damage is higher than most of the 300 mana skill in the game that need to take up to 3 seconds at least to finish the skill. I have a question. Did this patch is really a balance patch? Or we better say it's a character's gap increasing patch? And that is why you're always screw up the game balance. And your game will never become balance and will never make the player satisfy with your balance as long as you have too much bias or the character's favoritism like this. Well, you may still not seeing this as a problem and always think that the Laby fanbase will always help you, but let's see what will happen to you next if you still thinking like this. And lastly, Noah, you're another's heavenly child, and after I read all of his buff, yeah. All the skill that buff has a overall damage equal and even higher than most of the 300 mana skill from the other character. And those skill will almost always deal at a full damage in raid because of the size of the raid boss was mostly have a huge size. So yeah, when it come to your heavenly child, you're always take care of them first, and that we call this behavior a discriminate, and the people like you will never find a true happiness in real life. Alright, lastly, did you know the meaning of the word balance? And did you really know how to balance the game? If you don't know, just use the Google and search the word balance, and if you ask me how to balance the game, my answer for you is, you balance everything. Not just only adjust or change the value of the skill up and down but a whole gameplay for each character and also the environment in your game for each character also need to be balanced. For example, you have some character in your game have a skill that didn't fit to the game, then what you need to do is, to make that character become fit to the game, and that is simple, right? And also balance the environment the game for each character is about promoting. You need to promote every character equally in order to balance the game environment in your game. And have a right mindset and priority about fixing, buffing, nerfing, and a promote for each character. And one of the most important factor to consider when come to balancing is each character's population. And why character's population balance is important? Well, listen, if you keeps doing the same like you're always does, the low-ranked character or the most unpopular character will keeps decrease and some days will disappear from your game. And what will happen after that? Just thinking. If all of the low-ranked character or the most unpopular character was really disappear from your game, that is mean they're quit. Yeah, they're quit the game. And what happen when the player quit the game? Of course, the money that you get will decrease. And what will happen if the money that you get from that low-rank character is a 20% of your total income and that income was disappear? The Nexon will come to you and ask you, hey, what happened? Did you flack up or something? Want me to quit support to you too? Yeah, you got another huge pressure, and when your income was decreased but the cost is still the same. So, what will happen? Yeah. The only answer for this situation is to cut the cost. And what is a simple way to cut the cost that mostly for a company does in common? It's a lay off the employee. And what happen when you lay off the employee? It's mean, the overall quality of your game and the service will decrease. And what happen when the overall quality of the game and service was decrease? Yeah, more player will likely to say flack you, I'm out, flack this game. And when more player quit your game, that means you need to cut the cost by lay off more employee. And what happen when you lay off the employee? Yeah, quality will drop. And what about Nexon? Yeah. Of course, the chance for them to cut you off will be increased too. And all this will lead into the collapse of your team, and of course, the Nexon will also get the damage that caused by you too, and you can think what will happen if you causing the damage to some big boy. Your life will never be the same. And all of this was started by incorrectly balance over and over until you reach the point that the more player has to say F you, I'm out, F this game. And the player that was most likely to say that is, of course, the player that mainly play the most unpopular character will be the first sign of this domino effect. And that is why I always tells you about the character populations balance is one of the most important thing to do now. And how to balancing the character population. I already told you in my channel, so please check it out yourself. And that method will work because the player was always want to play a strong character and the people in your game was still in the age rank that need the other attention and admired from the others. So, a strong character is a way to go for your customer group. Alright, that is all for this video. Thank you for watching and have a good day.